Hello, welcome to this edition of Trusted Citizens. It's election season in Uganda, and we're having a conversation around very many things. But pivotal to all election seasons is the conversation on manifestos. Many a times we have the conversation around whose manifesto is the best and what does it offer different sections of Ugandans. There is a peculiar one that has happened over the final 2 years of the two previous election seasons. We have had a group of people who are not running themselves, but say they have legitimate claim to having their own manifesto. Those are the young people of Uganda. In this edition of First as Citizens, we have a rather different setup. We want to hear from this very interesting group of people on why they think they are special enough to run their own manifesto and how that manifesto is created. Since 2011, we have had two editions of the Youth Manifesto, the first lasting 2011 through 2016, and the latter lasting 2016 through 2021. We now hear that they are trying to create a third one, and that third one is supposed to give the next president of Uganda the mandate of the young people. I am Jacob Eyeru. I am gathered with fellow young people, and we hope to have this conversation with you at home. You can join this conversation on Facebook, Face the Citizens page, Facebook and Twitter, but we also invite you to enjoy the conversation here. We're going to have some sort of house rule debate, some sort of house rule conversation with young people about the conversations around the manifesto. So, very welcome everyone, this is Face the Citizens. You are citizens, so I'm sure when you face each other, it makes sense. I'd like to start with what is happening in the country. I'm sure you all know about the presidential elections that are happening now. But as young people, you seem to be very insistent on being presidents yourselves. You want to determine what presidents will do. In 2011, you had, I don't know how many points were those, how many program points were those? Does anyone know? No one remembers? Okay, I do remember that in 2016, you had 5-point programs. And in those 5-point programs, there were jobs, there was health, there was education, there was participation in politics, and then there was sports and talent development. One of the people that was very active in that process is here with us, Mr. Movangizi. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I want you to first, let's start with you. Why is it important for young people to have their own, own conversation and demand to a presidency? Why not just look at which manifesto of a president is the best and we go with that?
Yeah, good question. One, a manifesto is, for a non-contestant, should be an engagement framework for them. Knowing that this is how we engage with leaders we voted into office. Second, it should be an accountability platform that you come up, have your ideas put in front, and you use them to hold to account your leaders and to even hold yourselves to account. Because the biggest thing we have is that we do civil society-led efforts because they are donor funded and the donor terrain determines what's going to be done. So most times we just stop there at the engagement level. But when you have a manifesto, you're creating an accountability framework for the next 5 years or the mandated office of an elected leader. So that is at the strategic level. Now at the implementation level and at the reality level, we have issues with how we engage in electoral processes. One, our engagement is informed and influenced by money.
Yeah.
And again, it is informed by cards, personality cards, religious cards, and tribal identities, which mean that we have a stark lack of ideas and issues informing how you engage in electoral framework in the electoral period, which means that once the personality card is cut out, we have no reason to engage. So what happens? Voter apathy. Or once the money is out, or once the money is used to fuel wrong things, what comes out is electoral violence because we are not following ideas. So a manifesto for a fragile, I'm using that fragile, demographic segment like young people is very, very crucial for putting in place an issue-based election engagement framework.
So
and that's why we need it.
So, Mr. Mwangizi, are you saying that people like FDC, like NRM, who went out of their way to try and include voices of all Ugandans into their manifesto in 2016, we are creating a fragile document, a document that does not speak what you as young people want?
What I was saying when I said a fragile demographic segment is that if they have no issues, because we must agree, and it's everywhere, in developed countries we find the veterans endorsing a certain presidential candidate.
Okay.
So if young people also say, for us, we are giving a block vote to this presidential candidate, or this line of thought politically, what is informing our choice of that decision? You get? So once you don't have it, it means that once you don't create a set of issues around which such population segment can class themselves onto, it means you are leaving them to the vagaries of manipulators. So they can manipulate you into electoral violence, they can manipulate you into following the money they have given you.
Okay.
That was the issue. And then when you talk of including issues in the manifesto, one, manifestos are elite, we must agree, are elite documents that you form a manifesto committee headed maybe by a certain professor in political science and whatever. So it is incumbent upon different segments of the population, maybe women, young people, children, people with disabilities, to come up and say, you know what, for us we have put in place our set of demands, so it's up to you to use them and put them into your manifestos, or even when you put them in manifestos, to make them part of your government program implementation strategies. That's the essence of such issues.
Let me come to Beatrice. Beatrice, Muvangizi here is trying to convince us that young people will not have an agenda if they don't have their own manifesto. But I mean, the NRM has an NRM Youth League, FDC has a FDC Youth League, DP has UID. Aren't these people allowed to feed into these manifestos? I mean, if he's talking about independent candidates, we would understand. But these big parties have youth wings, which we assume participate in creating their manifestos. Why should young people have their own away from party systems and structures?
See, I don't think that the youth manifesto...
I think you should use the microphone.
I don't think the youth manifesto is away from what the other political parties or individuals think. It's just a louder voice, an insistent voice that this is what we must have if we are going to vote you into power, if we're going to trust you with our next 5 or 7 years. So it's not because the other political parties do not have a program that caters for young people. It's just an insistent voice for us to rally behind you, for us to go behind you and mobilize for you. You must be deliberate on addressing our issues. And the issues of young people in this country are a lot and must be paid attention to.
All right, so we just address you, we say we have this manifesto. How do we hold you to ensure that you will still stick to ours, not yours, if you're the candidate?
Like you already said, a lot of leaders in their manifestos already have included things that address youth issues.
Yeah.
So our call is to insistently remind you, like you already said, the manifesto is a framework for accountability.
Yeah.
We can always go back to that manifesto and say, this we asked you did not deliver, this we asked you did not deliver. I think that's the essence of the youth manifesto.
Great, let me come to my brother Charles here. Charles, the conversation is getting interesting. Young people have agreed. They are bringing out the concern of, you know, this is what we want. But how many people participate in this is what we want processes? Do you feel like you're from Karamoja, Emmanuel? Do you feel like the Karamojong participate in the conversations that bring together documents, insisting that this is the position of young people of Uganda?
Wow, thank you very much. I think to just begin with what the last question you asked about Karamoja taking part in contribution to these manifestos and whether Karamoja takes part in this. I think Karamoja is a tenth of Uganda,
yes,
and it's still a sub-region up to today, and we don't know when it will become a region. Okay, so that's one of the problems. So due to the insecurity which has much for so long,
Emma, just do you want Karamoja as a region? You don't want it as a sub-region. Is that something you're trying to say?
Yes, Karamoja now should be a region state, at least.
Okay.
So
yes, but please
you
proceed.
find that Karamoja has been marginalized to a point that even programs like this, I don't know to what extent do they reach Karamoja. So Karamoja is like another country.
Okay.
Like if you even look at the manifesto of the Youth Manifesto of 2016 to 21, it does not represent any views, any aspirations, any attitudes of the youth in Karamoja.
But Emma, it wants good health. The Karamojong, I'm sure, want that. It wants jobs. The Karamojong. So are you saying?
Because if it does not reach 50%,
Okay.
at least 50%. So at least I think there's a problem here. And now looking broadly at Uganda nationally, I think the youth are saying there's a problem.
Yeah.
And what is this problem? Okay? So, and the problem is that it looks like this government has no one to give the young people an opportunity to represent themselves. It looks like the goal for the government is still far, and they want to pursue it. And pursuing it is that the young people coming closer, you may not pursue it. And now when you look at an ideal of integrating the entire East Africa,
Yeah.
so this is a long term. And the young people are saying, hey, when shall we be in charge? When shall we come and take full possession of this?
Of the East African thing.
And when you look at even those 5 seats in parliament, okay, it is just an invited space. Because I call it an invited space. The rest of other people call it affirmative action.
Yeah.
Like now, those 5 seats in parliament. What do they really do? You know, the youth that form over 75% of the Uganda's population, those 5 seats, it's an invited space because you have been invited to turn the wheel the same direction it has been turning for all this time.
So you're saying
Even more women actually in leadership
so
now.
Emma, are you saying we need more representation, or that the representation that's there is not even helpful and working?
Not really that. What I'm trying to say is that at what point is the aspirations of youth being brought front?
Yeah.
And at what point is it considered? You know, because even if you have to look at who is this one who was trying to oppose the amendment of Article 102B, and now is the one who was brought by the president to come and accompany him in his nominations.
Yeah.
Okay, at Chambogo. So at what point, you know, at what point is...
So you're saying we need something that turns the wheel?
So because now if you try to propose a more youth-led transformative leadership agenda,
Yeah.
you're pulled down. I've just given you an example of that one,
Yeah.
of that youth, NRM youth, who was trying to oppose, you know, meaning that we go this direction. The idea of the older people being there, maybe it's a high time that we try more ideas with more young, vibrant Ugandans.
Okay.
And then he was shot and he was pulled down.
All right. So do you feel like these more vibrant young ideas are coming in with the dependent manifesto on young people?
You know, the state at which their power is shifted, okay, from the wananchi, from the ordinary local person, to now to the state. So it's like our democracy is standing with the head. Because you try anything small now, tear gas, you try anything small, you're beaten up. So the power is not with the people. And this is what the Constitution says.
Yeah.
The power belongs to the people. But in the reality in Uganda, does power really belong to the people? It's not there.
Thank you. Let me talk to let me talk to Charles. I don't know if the name is Charles. George. I don't know why Charles is in my head, but George. Let's start from where he has left it. The power is not with the people. That's Emma's suggestion. So why are the people coming up with a manifesto? You young people, if you have no power.
Okay, to me, I believe that the power belongs to the people.
Okay.
According to the ideal, what is in the Constitution. But practically, the young people need to control the affairs, some of the parts of the affairs of the state. They need to be engaged in what is taking place in their countries.
Yeah.
For example, if they try to rise up in respect of their right of freedom of expression and association, as stated in Chapter 4 of the 1995 Ugandan Constitution, then the government or the state must respect this without sabotage, without even bringing in some other laws like the Public Order Management Act, that they will need to disperse. Actually, the Public Order Management Act is there to give authority to the police to disperse the meetings that are going to happen.
Yeah.
If these meetings, take an example, they are not going to be favoring the party in power, then it grants full authority to the police to disperse those meetings. Then another issue about creating several, independent or specific manifestos for such groups, young people, the youths, even there are some other groups that will come up and will be like, we are also marginalized.
Yeah.
We are also vulnerable. then that means we shall continue creating a lot of groups that different manifestos. The farmers will come up, we also need our own manifestos. Even the students will come up, we need our own manifesto, national manifesto. So that is my thought about it.
So in your opinion, this dividing of manifestos by demographics will lead to a countless number of manifestos?
I think it will bring a lot of manifesto. I think we should bring a national manifesto.
Is that a bad thing?
We should bring a national manifesto and say, health tackles every individual.
Yeah.
Every individual has an issue of health.
Yeah.
Education, everyone needs a better education.
Okay.
We talk about schools, we talk about roads, it tackles every individual. Not, it brings inequality. I think it brings a picture of inequality.
Thank you so much. We're going to hold it right there. This conversation is getting interesting. This is First the Citizens, and we'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to this edition of First the Citizens. It's a rather peculiar edition. We are not seated with big men, we are seated with the young people of this country. Neither are we with big women, we are seated with the young women of this country. So we are discussing what young people do when presidential aspirants come to their homes. Do they just clap for them or they demand things from them? And in this edition, we're discussing their particular demands of the Youth Manifesto. As we were going around our conversation, friends, we had reached a point where we had disagreed on whether the manifesto represents all of us or some of us. But not to keep ourselves there, I'd like us to now look at, and to help that conversation, I want us to look at the last one, which is the 2016-2021 manifesto. And I'll start with you, Dennis. It had 5 points. It needed jobs. The NRM and FDC all promised jobs. The NRM promised 1 million jobs. It wanted improved health. The NRM had that in their manifesto, as did the FDC. It wanted increased participation. I don't know if the increased participation has happened, or these new seats of elderly people in parliament have gone the wrong side, should have come to young people. But it wanted a couple of things. So let's assess. Do you feel like in the last 5 years we have achieved anything from the last one?
Thank you so much. My name is Dennis, like he did mention. So I think in the last 5 years, the young people have not really been felt impact.
Okay.
Or the Youth Manifesto, like we did mention, did not reflect so much of the young people's ideas and opinions. So I first of all bet if anyone here knew about the drafting of the Youth Manifesto in 2011, apart from a few people. And the biggest percentage of the young people in Uganda do not know about this Youth Manifesto. So the question on table is also about the criteria of drafting this manifesto. What is, how many people participate in this process?
Maybe I should ask, were you 18 in 2011? Were you already 18?
2011, yeah, I was already 18,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
So
good.
the biggest percentage of the young people do not know about this.
Yeah.
And how many people participated in this? Is it because there's an instance also where people who are not young people participate in the drafting of this? Yeah. They don't know the ideas.
Dennis, do you think everyone has to participate for it to be the voice of young people?
No, I think it's not everyone, but at least the biggest percentage of the young people.
The biggest percentage is how many? 50%?
It can be 50%
That's
or
about,
40%.
that's about 10 million people. Do you think we should have 10 million people contributing to a 5-page document?
No, it can't be, because if you move per region, maybe in this country, in Uganda, and you ask the biggest percentage of people in the region, they do not know about this.
Yeah.
So, which people participate in this drafting of the Youth Manifesto?
Okay.
That is what
I'm sure Prosper will answer that. Let me cross Prosper and come to Shubra here. Some comments on whether we are making headway with these manifestos. There have been 2 now. Dennis thinks he has not known the first one. He knew the latter. Do you feel like they are having us have any success, or we are in just beautiful politicking as young people? We have this good page, and we have conferences, and we're paid allowances.
Okay, thank you for that question, Jacob. So first of all, I'd like to comment that when you look at both manifestos, the first one and the second one, the fact that 95% of the previous manifesto is a replica of the next manifesto goes to show the ineffectiveness of this particular agenda. Because if at all the first
Shubra,
one...
does that mean the agenda is ineffective, or we are not achieving with the agenda? Because Those are two different things.
When we ask ourselves if something has actually achieved anything, then we want to find out if it's effective, right? So I'm saying that the agenda of us having a youth manifesto should have achieved something, to the effect that if this year we have issues such as jobs, political participation, then the next running year should be another issue that is tackling youth problems. But right now we have just the one that was made mention of, 2016 to 2021, reflects the same issues as the other one, and it's just a matter of semantics, just as I was explaining to Prosper
Okay,
here.
but the sickness has not changed. The last time we were suffering from malaria, we are now in malaria again.
Exactly.
Should we now say we want to treat typhoid? Because the unemployment is still there. So are you saying we should abandon it?
That's my point exactly.
Yeah.
That should we keep doing more of the same without achieving results?
Yeah.
Is it working or it's not working?
Okay.
Yeah. But the other point I wanted to bring out is this, that it's not a question of form, but rather it's something of substance. There has been a whole argument about older people being in parliament, in government, and as such, our issues are not tackled. But you see, there's a principle of universality here. We have the same problems. Old people have children whom they want to go to school. We have issues of hospitals, infrastructure, political participation. In a democracy, we would hope that even the young ones and old ones get to participate. I'm thinking that what matters is the substance of it. Whoever is in power, government, or whoever is actually controlling what goes on, should be in position to tackle these issues that universally affect all of us. The fact that youth come out to give their own manifesto all the time goes to show that there is a lacuna in what's going on. Why? We have a representative democracy. Elections happen. Youth vote, yes? So if they vote wrongly, then they're going to get wrong results. Or maybe they are voting under semblances of their issues being tackled, but at the end of the day, they are not tackled. Does that then mean that we should keep giving manifestos that are not actually achieving much, or we should look at the substance? As such, you should make informed decisions in as far as elections.
That's where Muvangisi started. He said, should we just go empty-handed and be manipulated how we want, or should we at least have something we say, this is what we want, at least take us by this, let's vote you by this, which is the better situation, or do you just want nothing?
Well, just like I was telling you, the compartmentalization of this thing for me does not work, because I believe in a Uganda that is democratically represented. That is why we have elections. I would want my grandmother to be represented, just like I am represented. And we have similar issues, I must say.
All right. So let me go to Muvangisi, because what we want to tell people now is whether the things are achieving anything. In the last 5 years, did the manifesto achieve any traction in governance in Uganda? Because maybe some people here have just not seen the traction. I'm sure if you said we created 5,000 jobs, when I've only gotten one of them, I may not see the other 4,900. So that's something that you should tell us about. Did we achieve any traction?
Yeah, thank you. One, I first want to begin by debunking a certain myth that she called it compartmentalization of manifestos. One, I want to give you a fact, and I had it, I think, from my brother Dennis, talking of why youth. I can tell you the Women's Manifesto has been in the offing for more than 15 years now.
Wow.
Led by Forward, drafting the Women's Manifesto every extra year. Citizens Manifesto, I can tell you, I think last week I was at NGO Forum to give views, because I am part of the process in some ways of the Citizens Manifesto, coordinated by NGO Forum. It's going to be, I think, the fourth for this electoral period. And manifestos are very many. One time I think I saw World Vision lead a group of youth who draft, young children, high school children, primary school children, drafting a children's manifesto. We have done benchmarking. Different segments take what they want to be done, their manifestos, to the European Parliament. What each electoral term of the European Parliament. You look at Tanzania recently came and we taught them on how to draft the youth manifesto. So sometimes I think the bits, and even the East African community is trying to do this.
Just to be clear, were you teaching youth or the elders?
The young people of Tanzania, under the ULEAD framework. And giving them those views, and I've used it in the recently concluded electoral period. So I think it is high time we began appreciating the low-hanging fruits we get out of this thing. Now, I'm coming to what we have done. I mean, okay, not what we have done, but what has been achieved. In reviewing the progress of the National Youth Manifesto, You look at 4 areas.
Yeah.
Programs. Which government programs are being initiated because of what you demanded for? Legislation. How many laws are coming in place because you have put up a certain demand? Second, policy. How many policies are being drafted out of that? Third, you look at the budget appropriation. How much of the budget is going to different segments that are being requested for by young people? Now, I'm coming with you on that. You don't have to worry. Legislation. 4 months ago, the local content bill was passed as an act of parliament. Now, for instance, I will give you an example in local content. Just look at oil and gas. If that bill is implemented, we shall have about $1 billion US being left involved with local content. And who's involved with local content? And who's the biggest beneficiary? It's us, the young people.
And the local content bill is a product of the Youth Manifesto.
Yes,
good job.
It was a request of the manifesto. You look at, we have been having this issue of where PPDA stopped the Electoral Commission from issuing the license, the tender for ballot printing. Now, in 2016, the PPD Act was amended to create at least 40% reservations on all government and public contracts being given to young people and young people's businesses, small and rising up businesses. You get, that is on area I'm talking of legislation. Let's talk about policy issues. We have the national strategy on teenage pregnancy. You know, every year we lose about $18 trillion shillings through teenage pregnancy and early marriage. In 2018, through what the youth had done in requesting for a policy tackling teenage pregnancy, the World Bank supported the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Gender to develop that strategy. It is out. My brother from Karamoja talked of what the people in Karamoja are being, what are they getting? We have the Anti-FGM Act. It was part of the demands put under the segment of healthcare. The Anti-FGM Act that we don't have to get our young girls being forced to do those things that are happening to them. You look at the different government programs from the 2011 manifesto. This youth rival program was 265 billion shillings being put into it. Was a demand of the young people, and it was connected by the Parliamentary Forum on Youth Affairs in being drafted. Now we are having about 500,000 jobs being created from the youth rival program indirected, and about 200,000 jobs being created directed because of such a programmatic and policy thing. We look at the 52.8 billion shillings being put into the National Strategy on Youth Employment and Agriculture. I don't know, yes, we may not be benefiting from these things because we are the elites.
No. So I think they are convinced.
Yes?
What I'm sure they are wondering now is what I'm also wondering. Why don't you just support the NRM? Because it has allowed all these things you wanted to. Why don't you just go with that? 2 weeks ago,
we were in the president's office. We're in the president's office taking the recent, because when you talk of the demands, people look at the 5 of them. No, but there are more. We put 5 thematic demands, and under each we put a series of demands, and then we actually even go and make what is known as the technical National Youth Manifesto, showing at the end of this financial year, if we say we amend the Education Act, what specific things are you trying to achieve at the end of each financial year? You get. Now we're in the president's office to meet with the manifesto committee and the manifesto implementation committee. Now, for instance, if NRM wins, we have been promised a slot that every time they are reviewing the NRM manifesto, at each year, young people are actually reviewing it in tandem with the National Youth Manifesto. Okay,
so it means...
That's on NRM, I'm not NRM.
Yeah, FDC, so it means that what you're achieving is that young people will have voices in any government.
FDC, the FDC manifesto, if you go and look at its segment talking about youth-friendly cities, that is directed, and it is a copy and a paste from our manifesto. You look at the NUP manifesto, where they are citing the African Charter on Democracy and what are the issues on education. Those are issues that we took to them and said, these are our issues. You go to the Interreligious Council. They are now willing to incorporate certain aspects that we have been talking about. Which
I think we are convinced. I think we are convinced it works. So I want to, Shubra, I'll come back to you. I want to start with my brother here. If you could help him with the microphone. Are you as convinced as I am that these things work? And therefore we need another one for the next one.
Okay, thanks. This is Lokonian Gabriel Alvis from Karamoja. I'm not so convinced with what this guy is talking about. Like, I don't know all that money. Let me first go to the side of the young teenage pregnancy. My brother, you talked of forced marriages. I've not seen anything set for the youth, for these teenagers, girls who are pregnant at that level. I've not seen any policy working on it. and I've not seen any money.
I have talked of the national strategy on ending teenage pregnancy and child marriage. That is
It is still a strategy.
It's still a strategy.
strategy is a government policy.
Yes. Okay, he's saying it's a policy now. It has left strategy. Are you convinced now?
I'm not yet convinced.
A national strategy, a presidential directive, and a government program are all policies.
Yeah. So I think what we can agree on is that it has done some work. Do we agree that it has done some work? Yes. It might not have reached you. The work might not have reached you. Has it reached you? It has done little work. It has done little work. Okay. So what I'm going to request is that maybe there's another one because I can see that Prosper seems to know a lot about the former one. I have heard there's a new one, and I think we would want to hear from you what the new one has
I think
and whether it solves. So Emma, because we need to go for a break, just hold it a little bit. We'll come back from this short break. These are young people, and it's getting heated in here. This is Face the Citizens. On this very special edition of First the Citizens, we are looking at young people's aspirations when it comes to who bears the office of the presidency. Do they give us what we want, or they simply give us what they prepared for us to have? Young people are having their own manifesto, and that manifesto is now coming into a third phase. We are going to hear now about the latest version of the young people's demands, and that is the 2021-2026 presidency. What do young people want to have in this country, and how do they want to achieve that? It's getting heated around here, you'll bear with us, but let's have now knowledge of, is there something new that's been cooked up by young people? But before you go into what it is, Prosper, I want you to help these young people to know how many people participated, because that was a big question, and how were they chosen? Such that we can know, if I come from, like Ayeru Jacob comes from Oyomai in Soroti, was Oyomai there? If not, how did you make sure Oyomai was heard?
Yeah, thank you. One, those of us who are into research, we know at a national survey, a study becomes a national survey if it has 1,215 participants. It qualifies for a national survey. Now, for this manifesto, we had 2,528 participants.
Okay.
So it is a national survey times 2. Anyway, I know we are about 9.8 million youth, so only 2,000 is a small number. Now, the manifesto is drafted by a coalition. You know, we have heard of the Citizens Coalition on Electoral Democracy.
Yeah.
There is Youth Coalition on Electoral Democracy, which is about 60 youth organizations nationwide and youth serving organizations. So all of them do bring in a different expertise.
Okay.
And the constituencies, because I may not be in ABIM, but there's an organization that is in ABIM. I was actually there to validate the manifesto because I used a network of an organization to get there and validate what had come out of the consultations. So
they use the representative approach, like democracy.
Yes, because we can't be everywhere. One, the youth sector is under-resourced. National Youth Council should be heading its own 1 billion per year. But it has about 9.8 million young people to be looking after. So the sector, we have to agree it's under-resourced. But then as young people, we must be dynamic, we must be creative and move around different obstacles to get what we want. So we sent out questionnaires. The problem with this was we had COVID, so we couldn't do physical meetings for the initial time. But for those who couldn't do questionnaires like informal sector youth, because youth, when we talk of youth, we normally tend to think they are homogeneous, but no, they're not homogeneous. We have a young Shubra who's not in school, maybe got pregnant at senior 1. But then we have a Shubra also.
Shubra will not smile about that, but go on.
At UCU, we have a young person in the informal sector, we have the border industry, we have the educated youth, we have the youth in civil society, youth in politics like Jacob here. So we are heterogeneous, and we always want to take in perspective the intra-group dynamics among young people.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So we were using a mixture of physical, phone calls, and online.
All right. So then what did you come up with? What's the final document to see?
What came up were areas that we have classified under. One is is climate action and youth-friendly cities.
Yeah.
So in that area, some of the demands, I will just give a few, is that we need to expedite the passing of the climate change bill. We need to provide for policies that reduce waste and plastic pollution. We need to put money into the Uganda Green Growth Development Strategy so that we create green jobs, and by 2040 we are looking at a green economy.
A green economy?
Yes. That is, and then of course when in climate action.
What
we are
is a
talking-
green economy?
A
Because
green-
people in Karamoja are now wondering what is
a
the
green economy is one, because you see, the economy we have is a destructive one, run by capitalistic interests. That if I'm going to, I must exhaust the resource until it's no more, and maybe move on. That if I'm mining gold, I must leave pit holes of mining gold and leave. But there is an environmental disaster you're creating out of that. So in trying to look at green growth, we are trying to look at an economy that yes answers the economic needs of the people, but also answers that is aware that nature must be able to survive and remain for young children who will be coming up. So that's what we are.
That's number one. Number two.
So that was one demand. Now on health, we are looking at mental health, increasing funding for mental health because most of our young people are suffering out of that. We are looking at drug control, substance abuse and drug control. We are looking at adolescent-friendly services because we have a lot of young people dropping out of school because of menstrual poverty. We have a lot of young people dropping out of school because of teenage pregnancy and early marriages. So, and we are looking at creating a resilient healthcare system that is adequately funded and that can survive.
Okay, let's wrap it
adverse
up.
effects.
What's the third thing?
The third one is education. And education, we are now calling it education that drives growth, not just this theoretical education. And what we are looking at is that making it ready for the 21st century and the needs, those needs that are needed for the 21st century. We are looking at an education system that is more practical. We are looking at education.
You're looking at vocational education.
Yes, we are looking at education that facilitates a smooth school-to-work transition. That's the aspect of education.
So what's going to happen to historians? We don't need them anymore?
No, we need them. I'm a historian myself. Am I looking bad?
Okay, what's the fourth point?
Anyway, the fourth one is on participation. So the participation we are looking at, for instance, the previous one we had requested that we need the youth to be everywhere. We have amended the constitution, so someone at 24 can contest for presidency. The Local Government Act has been amended, someone at 18 can contest to be chairman or C5 somewhere. So now what we are looking at is more access to information. Young people must know that information is available. We're looking at tackling corruption so that we can eliminate most of the systematic barriers.
All right. Is there a fifth one?
Yes.
Yes, what's
I've talked of education, I've talked of health, I've talked of climate action.
Participation.
Then employment and livelihoods. And that one is looking at skilling. We are looking at young people in the sports and creative arts industry. We are looking at funding in museums, funding sports and creative hubs. We are looking at, because the National Youth Manifesto right now talks of having 27 industrial and business parks by 2023. So how do we make them youth friendly? How do we put incubation centers in those business and industrial parks? These are some of the things we are looking at and the demands we are making.
Okay, Emma, in a very short while, they are looking at 5 things again. It looks like they like the 5 number. I don't know whether it is a completion number or it's just easier to count on the palm. Do you think that these 5 things represent everything?
Wow, I think first and foremost, looks like the team drafting the Youth Manifesto is locked in its own controversy, okay? And there are, because now if you have to look at from your scorecard, okay, from 2011 up to 2021, you're still talking about unemployment. So it looks like there are no jobs for the youth, okay? And we want to believe that this time round, this one is going to be more constructive in terms of choosing what topics, the aspirations of the youth in this country, okay? And that's what we want to believe, because it looks like there are no jobs, and that if you look at what you have been promising in terms of jobs, okay, job creation, even government, okay, so it looks like there are no jobs, and that the only jobs you can afford now is becoming maids or askaris in Emirates,
so
in Arab countries.
These industrial parks, are they not employing people?
Because now, why is it still in the manifesto? Why are we still, if it's really employing all? Yeah. Okay, anyway, now, I want to come to the 5-point plan, which he has just praised here, about the law, the bill that Parliament has just passed. If you look at the content of that bill, at what point does it create jobs for the youth? Because if you have to look at the entire clause.
The local content
law. Local content law. First of all, at what point does it, like, are there laws in that local content law that 70% of your employees you international companies
Let me take
must
you
be
through
local.
the-
No,
That's what
just
it
a
says.
moment.
Don't
Are
want
they
it to
there?
be-
Are they there? And in terms of
coming
implementation,
to
Emma, wait.
The Wooden Bill has about 5 elements. One, it says in the first year of setting up an investment, you should have 70% of your employees being.
Thank you.
citizens.
Emma, continue.
By 5 years, you have 90%.
No, don't. Emma is talking. Let's now have Emma.
now, at what point do you implement that? Because it does not play it doesn't play on the ground, doesn't play anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, the contracts we are giving to these foreign companies, okay, the Chinese and so forth, to tarmac this road. Okay, they are a group of youth who have come up with some small companies.
Can they tarmac
can
an
they?
express highway?
No, they can go for a joint venture with this international Chinese company, for example.
Yes.
So before Chinese company is awarded the contract, can that Chinese firm or that Chinese company go for a joint venture with that local company? And if yes, why is it not happening? So even if it is a road, bush clearing and so forth, or in Karuma, a local company managed by youth, managed by young people, can clear the road. Even if you are using hose and so forth, you can clear the road. And then now you bring your machines, you a Chinese man, you now bring your machines. So why is it not reflecting? Because there are no roads.
Yeah.
And in 1960, when Obote was launching the railway, for example, to Pakwach, he was proud to say that this railway was built by our engineers.
But
So does it reflect anywhere today?
Emma, is that the
in terms
railway
of in terms of our youth manifesto today,
Okay.
the one of 2016 to 2021.
Thank you, Emma. I've heard you. But as we move to him, just pass him the microphone. I also know that in that 1968 railway line, 8 people. But let's hear from him now. You had something to say quickly.
Thank you so much. This manifesto that they drafted, to me, I really feel
You
that.
said we drafted.
Okay, that
We.
I can't say that we drafted yet. I didn't participate in it.
Yes.
No.
You are not among the 2,000.
I'm not among. Maybe there were ghost participants, but to me, I really feel that there's nothing that can bring wealth creation and prosperity and better standards of living like freedom.
Freedom.
Even if we have on one point here, like freedom and liberty to do what you need.
What you need.
What you want to do. Like the young people, they have a lot of opportunities through the internet, but we are going to see that the government is actually bringing OTT. He talked about participation. How are we going to participate in governance, yet we are not informed?
One of the things that the manifesto is trying to address is freedom to take drugs anytime you want. Do you think we need such freedom?
Now, it depends. The government should not, you know,
Mr.
the moment you
Moderator.
try to fight something, do you know what it will bring? It will bring a black market.
So you say when we ban cigarettes, when we try to address drug abuse, we will increase it.
There should be a limit. Yes, it's like in the US. There's a certain president in the US who launched a drug war, but that drug war, it has drained the country's resources. The budget, the amount of a budget, a certain amount of a budget is going to that very policy. Yet they can bring the money to focus on other things.
So we need freedom.
We need freedom to do what we need to innovate. They can include in, you know, if we think about taxes that are happening in the country, there is no freedom. There is regulations. 30% of import duty.
All right, let me hear from my brother. You have not said anything. I'm sure you have listened and you want to give us the final word.
Concluding remarks.
Yes, thank you so much, moderator. My name is Bosco.
Yes, Bosco.
Yes, for sure this youth manifesto, I think many youths are not aware of this thing. Like, for sure there is maybe a need to create awareness and participation, maybe, like he said, maybe do you get a phone call and call maybe some section of people, or I don't know how you do it. Are they ghost participants, like he said, or I don't know how you do it, but for sure there is a need to create awareness. As you can also, you know, these are ideas, eh?
Yeah.
Yes, ideas. So there is a need to create awareness, and so that you can all participate. Maybe you can put it like on the regional level, like Western. Yes, so that maybe, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the manifesto itself needs some sort of campaign for, you know.
Yes.
Okay.
That people raise, like Karamoja region has its own problems. And
they have gold.
Yes. Then our Western has problems. Then
milk.
So, yeah, like that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let's hear from Beatrice finally.
Thank you. I really would like to defend the team that drafted the manifesto. The question of who was consulted, who was involved in the drafting, for me is not a core issue. I think the core issue is, what are the issues of young people in this country? Are they universal? Majority of them, do they cut across the country? Because I think unemployment is universal.
Yeah.
Health is universal.
Yeah.
Education is universal. Effects of climate change are universal, whether you're from Karamoja or from Chenjojo. It really, for me, it doesn't matter who drafted. Well, the question of, do we know about it? If you're not the implementer, whether you know about it or not, it doesn't change the results.
Okay.
The question, for me, the importance of the Youth Manifesto is to create a list of demands on who is going to be our leaders. This is what we want as young people of this country, and that's our bargain line.
All right.
And I think that's the core importance of the Youth Manifesto, not who was consulted. Well, if you sit at the regional level and discuss these issues that you already know already affect you, what difference does it make?
Okay.
What really matters is, do we have a bargain line? And these 5 are our major bargain lines. You want us to entrust you with power? Please address the issues. And then the last thing was on how many times it reoccurs, the first manifesto, the second, and the third. Of course, the issues have not been addressed, and we'll consistently say, if we are going to trust you with our power, address these issues today, tomorrow, even 5 years later, we might say the same issues.
Thank you. So I think that the bottom line is the bargain line. And we'll leave it at that. Today, the young people want to have their own bargaining line, and that bargaining line is in their point program, 5 point. If you add some from the previous, there could be 7. Some are recurrent. These issues, presidential candidates will be addressing them on their campaign rallies, but we'll hope that the president that eventually comes to power will adopt these issues so that those that have concerns here of the repetition of issues can no longer have them in the next one, and perhaps will enjoy the process of being a part of the creation of a new one post-2026. Jacob Beyeru, and this has been First Citizens. Until next time, so long.